tell us that we need. So welcome to the podcast, Jessica.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's great to be here.
I am actually really excited to go into this conversation because intuitive eating and food and all the things are definitely something that's near and dear to my heart. But I want to start with my favorite opening question, which is, in this moment in your life or this time in your life right now, what's that thing that's lighting you up the most?
Oh my goodness. What a question. It's funny. I always kind of talk about and think about that right around the turn of the new year, like reflecting on the prior year and not looking at it as like, what did I not do? Like, what did I not do to add to my to-do list or to-be list in the next year? Cause a lot of people do carry that over, but I think that reflecting back to see growth that happened for me over 2021 and look into 2022 as, I don't want to use growth again, but it's like continued growth, like continued flourish. That was my word, right? So I always come up with a word. I think it's very like common for people to do that, especially in like the business world and entrepreneurial world. But like, that's my word for 2022. And I think that's what's really lighting me up, like how to go from growth to flourish and, continue on a trajectory of helping, as many women as possible get out of their own way and really live like that life of optimal health and, optimal happiness that they desire. And so I think that's what's lighting me up, is this possibility of, like a flower, right? Like opening up and like really branching out and expanding and growing and flourishing, and that sort of visual.
Those are really powerful words: expanding, flourish, opportunities. That's a great way to go into a new year.
Totally. I'm excited for 2022.
I feel like it's going to be a great year. I mean, everybody's has these mixed feelings, but I'm like, I really feel like we got enough twos in there. It's got to be a good year.
100%. Like, it's time. We're all owed some good moments right now, right?
So I want to know a little bit about your story, because I know that you said that you were an attorney at one point in time, and now you are, you've totally shifted. So there's got to be a story behind that.
Oh my goodness. I can try to make this as abridged as possible. So I practiced law in New York City for close to 10 years. The latter portion of that, I dabbled in sort of my own personal, physical and mental transformation is what I can kind of call it. I was someone who struggled a lot with body image and weight and emotional eating. And tried all the things, diets and all the things, and sort of discovered, like kind of rediscovered myself. And in the process realized like, I don't know how cursing is on
That's fine.
Podcast, but I was about to go down that line.
You can go down that line. We are an explicit podcast here. So,
but I was, it's like, oh hell, like I don't like my job, but I don't like not only my job, I don't like the law. Not really sure why I came down this road or this pathway. I've spent 10 years practicing as an attorney. The first few were fun because I was a prosecutor and it was like very law and ordery, but I was also like in my 20s, single, living in the city, like fun life. Right. And so as that changes, that became overworked, underpaid, stressed, burnt out. And then no longer actually practicing the type of law that was even interesting. So it was very unfulfilling. It was extreme. And then I had a family. And so getting married and having children and going through this personal physical transformation, mindset transformation, working on myself and my own personal development and understanding like how important that is to like our lives. Right. I was like, whoa, like shit needs to change.
Yeah.
And so first I dabbled in like a little side business, which kind of led me down a further path of personal development, which then led me into going back to school. And so, my first stop was, and we were talking about this before, but the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And along the way, you know, becoming certified as an integrative, you know, health coach, now, you know, a holistic nutritionist, and diving into further just certifications, when it comes to nutrition, emotional eating, hormone health, like really finding this crux of, you know, women who I love to help. And it's because I struggled in that area really, really badly. And I was able to find a way out. That's the short of it.
I mean, and that's a huge transformation. And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to realize, which I think, you know, like, although it's been crazy, this has been like the great, like, awakening of self. And you said something was so powerful, was that you rediscovered yourself.
And you know what I feel? I find that, so I work with women who on average, they're like mid to late 40s, give or take. And so many women at this stage of life are rediscovering themselves and finding their true passions and making changes and changes in their careers, changes in their passion, and changes in their life purpose. It's incredible when you can really go deep and explore yourself and actually live your passion, find out what your passion. I have a friend who wrote a book about passion, like finding your passion and purpose. And, you know, I just finished reading his book, and it was, you know, it's wonderful. Like that's life when you can actually live and breathe your passion and purpose. It's why I do a lot of value-based work. Like, we need to know, like, you need to know what's important to you. What you said, like, what lights you up, right? What lights you up so that you can actually live each day feeling, you know, alive and with purpose.
Ooh, that feeling alive. I didn't know I wasn't alive feeling that way until last year. And that is really important. And I'm excited that you're giving this back to other women. So I want to know, like, in the realm of, you've come through being a lawyer, now you've gone through all these integrative, holistic approach to approaching life, basically, like living in a wellness state where you are really lit up and, like, I call it tingly. I feel like when I'm alive, I feel like that tingly energy. What is your favorite thing that you love helping and supporting with? Like, out of all the things, if there was just like one little thing, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question.
I like to ask the doozies.
Hard ones. You're like me. I ask hard questions. I do, because asking hard questions is where you grow. And I can appreciate that. What is my favorite thing to watch? I mean, I think when it comes to, all right, so I'll just answer as it relates to my clients. And so most of the women I work with have some sort of struggle with food behaviors, emotional eating, or some sort of emotional relationship with food, right? So maybe it's not emotional eating, but maybe they just feel really guilty every time they eat a cookie. Okay. Or like they don't have, you know, intuitive eating habits or skill sets yet. So they just eat mindlessly, and then they end up overeating, and they don't really realize, and this was me a lot of the times, they don't really realize there's this like emotional attachment. Anyway, so I think what some of my favorite things to see when I hear wins and successes are that feeling of like emotional release, like detachment that food has on people, that food has on women, where they can eat and feel really good about it, where they can eat intentionally and not rely on the scale to dictate their own self-worth, where they can actually let go of the scale, where they can actually eat a cookie and be perfectly fine with that, where it doesn't bother them either way, or they can say no to a piece of, you know, chocolate cake, either, like, it doesn't bother them either way. They don't even really think about it. It's just like, either yes or no. And it's like not a big deal. Right. Whereas, they struggled for so long with sneaking food, hiding food, eating food in secret, overeating the food, eating a couple of bites and then being like, fuck it, I'm just gonna eat the whole thing because I gave up and I cheated on my diet. And now like, it doesn't even matter. So let me just go out of this like spiral out of control. And now like my whole progress has been derailed. And then they're like, life falls apart because of like one bite of cake. When that no longer happens, it's awesome. Like, it's awesome to see that people are in control again. People are like, these women are like, they're living their lives intentionally again. Because that skill, it's not just applicable to intuitive eating. It's not just applicable to their eating behavior. It's so applicable to all of their various aspects of their lives. And you see it. I see it. I see it have this ripple effect. I see it as it pertains to their relationships. I see it as it pertains to their kids, to their jobs, to their careers, to their businesses, and it hits all these different areas because you start to live more intentionally, like more present, more mindful, more just aware, right, of that present purpose. And that's what lights me up. Like, that's what's really exciting. And just, I love.
That's so cool. And that's a really good point, is that like, we don't really think about how much control food has over us through many of our lives. I mean, I probably started my first diet when I was 5, and then while I did my training at IIN, I tried every one of the diets that was offered just because I was like, okay, I need to shift this. But it does free up so much space to bring in other things when you allow it to be what it is, fuel.
Yeah, 100%. Can I share something that someone
Yeah.
wrote today to you? I'm going to bring it up on my computer because this is what lights me up. So you asked, I will give you, it's pretty awesome. Hang tight. Okay. So this is a woman who just last week was really struggling. She is fairly new into my world and into my program. Okay. She was really struggling with diet behavior and just really like setting strict standards for herself and letting it always feel like she's on a diet that is restrictive and that's hard. And of course it's hard because you're setting unrealistic standards for yourself. And so this is a woman, last Friday, she almost had like a meltdown. Okay. So just in literally less than a week, she writes this. She goes, I don't know what's really happening to me, but I feel so much calmer. I'm not sure how to describe this. I feel lighter in my body and also in my head and my thoughts. It feels great! ! I've been going to bed earlier. I've been keeping my goal of not checking my phone before bed. This is amazing. That's intentionality. Like, that's what I'm talking about, right? It's like, it's like that. I call it like food freedom, but it's freedom because it trickles into other areas of life.
Yeah. And it does, it really does. And the amount of time that you get back when you stop worrying about all the things. How many points is this? How many calories is this? What's my macro count? This is good and bad. I mean, for me, when I finally broke free and started doing intuitive eating, which I would like you to go a little bit more into because not all my audience understands intuitive eating, but it was just like this, all of a sudden I had all this free time and I'm like, what am I going to do with this free time? Like, I don't know. I added play and fun and, more work, but like it does free things. So what is like this intuitive eating for those people that don't know?
Such a great question. So I guess the best way to understand intuitive eating is, it's ultimately being able to listen to your body and and there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's a lot of skills that goes into that. Okay. But ultimately it's able to listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to yourself. It like intentionally listen to yourself and understand, what do I need? And then seek it. And with that, comes, unconditional permission to eat food. You have permission. to eat food, right? Not being on like strict diet plans or having forbidden foods or getting mad at yourself because you ate something like a cookie, or controlling cravings and having that and having actual control over it because you're actually not feeling the cravings anymore. Also eating for physical reasons, not emotional ones. So that's the emotional eating aspect where you are, again, in tune with your hunger, in tune with your fullness. So eating when you're hungry and really thinking about when you're not, right? Whether it's not soothing your negative emotions or, not eating when you're stressed out and finding other outlets and skills that will allow you to alleviate your stress. Or when you're bored, like, how do you handle that? When you're lonely, how do you handle that? Right. And also like eating towards your optimal health goals. So whatever your optimal health goals are, how do you, how do you nourish your body? What are you doing to nourish your life? What foods, what lifestyle choices are you using to nourish yourself, right? That's intuitive eating. And with that comes a lot of self-respect, self-nourishment, positive body image, really respecting your body, loving yourself. So I think that's good. Just a decent explanation of like what that actually entails and what that means. And again, like there's so many skill sets as it relates to how to apply that and how to learn that and what that actually means. Like there's a lot of, that's, obviously like that's what I do with clients, but that's the overall achievement that happens.
Yeah. And that's a great way to attunement to self, attunement to the body, and allowing yourself to actually feel the emotions instead of trying to cover them up with like, I'm going to go eat this bag of Oreos. There's nothing wrong with eating the bag of Oreos, mind you. But if you're doing it because you don't want to feel something, for me, that was the biggest thing, was like, I all of a sudden had to like feel anger, feel sadness, because I wasn't filling my pie hole to overcome my emotions.
Totally. 100%. And listen, like we all have emotions and like life is hard. I'm a mom of 3 kids. They're little. Like my dad died last year. Like life is fucking hard. Okay. Like, let's just be real right now. And if I didn't have these tools and if I wasn't in the place where I am, like my life would probably be falling apart.
Yeah.
And I will show up honest. I will be honest with everyone. Like I'm always very transparent about that, but like life is hard. And so we need to know how to navigate these things if those are the coping mechanisms that you're relying on.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is so much, it's freeing. Like you'll get so much time back. I promise.
Yes. Could you imagine like if you're the type of person who, and that's the other problem is I think that so many women also struggle with, there might not be the emotional component as it relates to like stress or boredom or loneliness or those things, but they're always thinking about food. Always. And this was me. Every piece of food that went into my mouth was analyzed, written down, calculated, math, thought twice about, thought 3 times about before putting it into my mouth, or thought about again after I put it into my mouth. I mean, the constant food obsession, the thinking about it, there's so much mental energy that goes into that. When you can free that up, when you can release that from your mind, yes, like you do reclaim back time because you're reclaiming back so much mental energy that you can focus on other things in your life, right?
Yeah. And it's amazing. I recommend everyone reach out to Jessica and get some help with intuitive eating, because if you're complaining that you don't have enough time in your day and food is consuming your time, you have a lot of free time. You just don't know it yet.
It's true. It's so true.
So where can people find you, since I just, said to come reach out to you?
Oh my God, you're so kind. So I guess the best ways, I run a Facebook group called Love Yourself Journey. So please come join us. And you can always reach me on Facebook or Instagram. Jessica Kisphaugh, @Jessica Kisphaugh. Those are probably the best ways. I'm also really responsive to email, which is jessica@lowyowellness.com. So any of those places, like I will personally respond to you. I am in there every day. I love hearing from people just to hear what's going on. I love hearing your stories, right? I love answering your questions, right? So, yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So I also wanted to ask you a question because we had a little conversation before, and you mentioned before we went live, you mentioned boundaries. And I think this is a huge thing for many of us. I mean, boundaries with food, boundaries with people, boundaries with our time, boundaries with our business. Most of this audience is women entrepreneur. I want to know, because I know that boundaries is one of those things that also lights you up, a little bit about boundaries and like how you found your ability to set the boundaries that make your life, happy without all the things that aren't serving you.
So how I apply boundaries, is that
Yeah.
what you're asking? Okay. So I think that it's really important to do two things. One is really get comfortable with the word no, and I'll explain what that means. And then two, really get a good understanding of what your values are. So I talk about values all the time. I teach values. We do value-based work and value-based exercises in the program that I offer with my clients. And why those two things are important is, one, when you know what your values are, which means you know what's important to you and you know what your priorities are, you're able to spend your time focusing on that. And then you're able to set boundaries a lot easier. It also helps with time management, by the way. That's a huge time management factor. If people are struggling with time, values-based work is going to be like critical, very critical. Okay. So once you know those things and you really get clear on that, and again, there's skill sets around that. You can know how to set the boundaries because you know what you want to focus on. You know what's important to you. You know where you're to spend your life and spend your time and how to spend your time. Again, time management, right? But also you need to give yourself permission to say the word no. And why? Because when you don't, then you're no longer living your values. You're giving yourself away. And you are over obligating yourself, perhaps to other people, to other situations, to other commitments. And so as it relates to me, like allowing myself to say no, because that's in alignment with my values, has been a game changer. And sometimes that's hard. Saying no to your mom, saying no to your in-law, saying no to your, saying no to people that love you and that you love can be difficult, but it also is setting boundaries. It's setting the expectation of like, this is how I function. This is how my life works. This is what's important to me. These are my values. And I need to be true to myself. I need to be true to my values. I need to be true to maybe my business. I set boundaries in my business as well. Because if we didn't have boundaries, could you just think of it like, think of yourself as an individual, like compare it to, a company that has systems. And if you were to say the system, like the operation of a company, is like the boundaries. So if we didn't have systems, if a company didn't have systems and operations, like, Starbucks didn't have like the certain recipes to make certain lattes, and like the baristas were just like doing whatever the fuck they wanted to do and making things however they like, the whole company would crash and burn. You need systems and operations in order to like run your business effectively. Boundaries are the same way. As an individual, you need boundaries and systems to run yourself like effectively, efficiently, and, with ease. I think that's the best way to, I don't know. Is that like a decent analogy?
Yeah.
I sort of just came up with that, but like, it's, I think that's, you have to just be able to create time and space, for yourself, and to be able to really live into what's important to you.
Ooh. And you said one of my favorite words is with ease. Like, let's do this with ease. That is like my life goal, is like, let's do life with ease. Come on. And I think that word no, it's the scariest word using it, especially as a recovering people pleaser. I'm going to call it. No is so hard because you're like, yes, then people won't like me. And it brings up so many other things, which I'm sure you love you.
They'll still love you, and they'll probably respect you more when you can set boundaries. Like if I could now home anything to take away, setting a boundary And whether it's the word no or just however you want to say it, like whatever verbiage you want to use, but again, it's creating the boundary. There is a mutual respect that happens when you can set that for yourself, so that you're no longer being the one who's being walked all over, or, no longer being the one who's able to focus on your values, your priorities, your self-care, your life.
Yeah. And I feel like as women, it's a harder for us. I don't know if that's true or not, or if I'm just saying that because I am a woman, that I'm like, I feel like it's harder for us to set boundaries. I feel like men have really easy time saying no all the time.
It depends. I think it depends, right? It depends on the man. But yes, I would say women, moms in particular, who are always there for their kids, like that sort of person. It's difficult. It's difficult, but it's not impossible.
Oh, difficult, but not impossible. I like that. Yes, everything is possible if you want it to be.
Absolutely.
I love that. So if someone were to walk away with just that one like little like mic drop golden nugget that you wanted them to take with them for the rest of their lives, what would that be?
I like that we ended on boundaries, because that could be it, right? It's, I talk about taking action. So like, you can learn all you want. You can listen to every podcast. You can take all the courses. You can join all the Facebook groups. You can do all the trainings. You can keep learning and learning. But when you don't take action, your life's not going to change. And so if you want something to change, you actually have to do something. And taking action doesn't have to be hard either. So I talk about imperfect action a lot. Doing one thing today that will serve you, doing one thing today that will benefit your life, doing one thing today that will be an improvement toward your weight loss goals, doing one thing today that will be an improvement towards your health, doing one thing today that's an improvement towards your relationship with your spouse, doing one thing today that's in alignment with those values that are important to you, taking action, right? Yes, I am a like perpetual student. I love learning. I'm a geek for knowledge, a thirst for knowledge. You have to take action, and it's okay to take imperfect action. It's not as scary.